Hey, my cheerers. Jana here. Welcome back to the stormy 5th episode of Have We Met Before? Taehyung's body hovered over Jungkook, his strong frame casting a shadow that enveloped him. He pressed Jungkook's hands firmly against the mattress, fingers gripping tightly as if claiming him. With both of Jungkook's legs trapped between his own, Taehyung's thighs caged him. The intimacy of their position heightened the tension. The slight rise and fall of Taehyung's chest mirrored the quickening pace of Jungkook's heart. Tae's Lee/PS caressed against Jungkook's, and his teeth subtly grazed Jungkook's upper Lee/P. Jungkook mo/ain lowly, a sound that spurred Tae on. With a subtle push, Tae offered his low, a lip to Jungkook, inviting him to take a tantalizing taste. Tae whispered, "Suck it, babe." Jungkook's Lee/PS parted, and he sucked Tae's lip into his mouth. Tae groaned, his lip teased by Jungkook's eager mouth. Jungkook's eyes flashed open, his gaze locking onto Tae's face as the latter's groan filled the air. Tae's eyes were closed, his features twisted in pleasure. Jungkook's tongue slowed its gentle assault on Tae's lower lip, gradually releasing its hold. With a teasing glint in his eye, Jungkook subtly pulled away. Tae's eyes snapped open, his gaze hungrily chasing Jungkook's mouth. Their eyes locked, Tae's pupils dilated, his irises burning with desire. "Say it. Admit you want more, babe love." A husky whisper breathed against Jungkook's skin. "Get off me," Jungkook's low, playful voice replied, even as his body seemed to relax into the weight above him. As their lips almost touched, the aforementioned guy burst into giggles, dispelling the tension. Taehyung, still pinning his hands to the mattress, chuckled and nuzzled their noses together. "How did I fall for this introverted cutie?" he whispered, his breath sending shivers down the other's spine. The latter smirked. "Get off me, then." The Aussie man's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh, come on, babe love. You're not exactly pushing me away, are ya?" He wiggled his eyebrows, teasing. "You low-key want me to do naughty things with you, don't ya?" Taehyung slowly unbuttoned the other's shirt, his palm glided over his chest. Jungkook closed his eyes, his body responding to the touch. But in a swift move, he flipped their positions, pinning his man beneath him. Taehyung yelped, "Ouch, babe. That was bloody sudden." Jungkook smirked, binding his Tae's hands together with a red tie. "Hey, what's the plan here, love?" Taehyung asked, his amused eyes darting between his tied hands and his captor. The latter slid out of bed, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "You think I'm boring, huh? What you gonna do, handsome?" Jungkook's smile was enigmatic. "You'll see." As Jungkook slid down Taehyung's body, Taehyung's eyes followed him, his breath catching in his throat. Jungkook walked over to the corner, his eyes locked onto Taehyung's face. "You want some fun?" Taehyung's laughter was husky. "Gosh, you're my love." He gestured for him to watch, then turned on the lights, revealing a drum set in the corner of the room. The Aussie's eyes widened. "Fair dinkum. You play the drums?" Jungkook guy took his seat, drumsticks in hand. "Watch," he began to play, the beats resonating through the room. The drums pulsed with energy, the rhythm weaving a spell of seduction. Taehyung sat up, his eyes fixed on the performance. "Blimey, that's hot," he muttered, his gaze devouring the sight before him. As the drumming intensified, the aforementioned guy's passion was palpable. Taehyung, still tied up, inched closer, his eyes burning with pride and desire. The red tie hung from his bound hands, a symbol of his surrender. Jungkook, eyes locked onto Taehyung, and he knew in that moment, he had him hooked. Taehyung swayed to the beat, his lips curled into a sensual smile. "Rue," he whispered, reaching out to touch Jungkook's face. Jungkook's eyes fluttered closed, his body swaying to the rhythm. Taehyung's fingers trailed down Jungkook's cheek, his touch sending shivers down Jungkook's spine. His warm breath danced across Jungkook's skin as he stood behind him, his tied hands wrapping around Jungkook's neck. Jungkook's pace slowed, his fingers faltering on the drums. "Keep playing, Rue," Taehyung whispered, his lips grazing the crook of Jungkook's neck. Jungkook's chest heaved, his breath catching in his throat. He resumed playing, the rhythm pulsating through the air. Taeyong hummed, his lips moving over Jungkook's skin. As he bent over Jungkook's shoulder, his lips caressed Jungkook's chest, his hair dancing across Jungkook's skin. Jungkook's eyes fluttered closed, his body trembling with desire. Taeyong slid onto Jungkook's lap, his hands wrapping around Jungkook's neck. "Play," he whispered, his lips brushing against Jungkook's. "I love the sight." Jungkook's smile was sensual, his eyes burning with intensity. As Jungkook played on, Taeyong's hands wrapped tighter around his neck. "Tell me you want this," Taeyong whispered, his voice husky. "Tell me you want Taehyung Nathaniel." Jungkook's voice was low and husky. "Just as mine, I want you." Taeyong's lips captured Jungkook's, their kiss hard and rough. Jungkook's hands wrapped around Taeyong, deepening the kiss. As they broke apart, Taeyong's lips ravaged Jungkook's face, neck, and chest. Jungkook cried out in pleasure, his body trembling with desire. "Taeyni," Jungkook whispered, his voice husky. Taeyong's eyes blazed with intensity. "I crave to feel you, Jungkook John, from the moment I saw you, my man, my love, my baby." Jungkook's gaze met Tae's, his eyes drifted off, a tender smile playing on his lips. Taehyung Nathaniel has fallen deeply in love, he thought to himself, his mind whispering the words like a gentle secret. Tae's tied hands cradled Jungkook's face, his fingers tracing the curves of his cheeks, drifting down to his neck, chest, and stomach. They paused at the edge of his navel, visible through the parted shirt. Tae's eyes, hooded and intense, gazed at Jungkook with unbridled passion. Jungkook's fingers trembled as he freed himself from the knot. His face paled, and he stepped back, creating distance between them. Tae's voice was laced with concern. "Rue?" Jungkook's legs buckled, and he sat on the bed, his eyes cast downward. Tae approached him, his footsteps soft. "Rue, what's wrong?" Jungkook's gaze lifted, his eyes burning. With a desperate search. "Taeyni, what are we to each other?" he whispered, his voice trembling with vulnerability. Tae's smile was a gentle, ethereal thin gas. He knelt before Jungkook, his fingers intertwining with Jungkook's. "We can be anything you desire, Rue," he murmured, his eyes shining with adoration. "Lovers, friends, partners, or something more? Something forever." Jungkook's stare was intense, his voice laced with the weight of sorrow. "I'm bound by chains I cannot break. My family, my duty. They will never permit me to love you, to be with you." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words, the air thick with the weight of their longing. Tae slid to the floor, his back against the bed, his eyes never leaving Jungkook's. He stretched out his arm, resting his head on the mattress edge, his gaze tilted up at Jungkook. A soft smile spread across his face, and his eyes blazed with a quiet intensity, drawing Jungkook in. The pose was effortlessly casual, yet tantalizingly intimate. Jungkook's gaze was ensnared by Tae's stare, helpless to resist the magnetic pull. With a low, husky breath, he surrendered, falling back onto the mattress. "Done for," he muttered, his voice barely audible, as he landed with a soft thud, his head sinking into the pillows. His body arched, his head thrown back, exposing his neck as he gazed up at the ceiling. His chest heaved, his skin burning with anticipation, every nerve screaming for Tae's touch. Tae's palm wrapped around Jungkook's foot, his fingers caressing the skin. Jungkook's breath quickened as Tae's face nuzzled his leg, slowly ascending to his thighs, stomach, and finally his face. Jungkook's eyes welled up, and Tae's voice trembled as he whispered, "Rue, please don't cry. Your tears, they unravel me, thread by thread. I feel a pang in my chest, a hollow ache that echoes with every breath." Tae's fingers grazed Jungkook's cheeks, his touch featherlight. "I remember the day you slapped me. Your eyes were brimming with tears, and it shattered me. I couldn't bear the thought of being the one who caused you pain. Your tears, Rue, they haunt me still." Their eyes locked, and the air seemed to combust with tension. Jungkook's control shattered, and he pinned Tae down, his gaze blazing with a fierce intensity. Tae's eyes widened in surprise, a hint of amusement dancing on his lips.
Whoa, Rue.
Easy does it, he whispered, his voice laced with a mix of shock and teasing. You start everything with your eyes, Tae, Jungkook whispered, his gaze burning with intensity. One look, and I'm undone. I'm helpless against the desire that sparks in their depths. Jungkook's eyes drifted from Tae's left eye to his right, tracing the curve of his eyelids, the shape of his irises. His gaze lingered, drinking in the sight of Tae's eyes, before dropping to his lips. Jungkook's breath caught as he leaned in, his lips brushing against Tae's in a gentle, exploratory kiss. A low groan rumbled in his throat as he deepened the kiss, his tongue probing the seam of Tae's lips. Tae's eyes fluttered closed, his body relaxing into the kiss as he whispered, "All yours, babe. Take me." As they said, Tae's hands drifted down. Jungkook's back, his fingers tracing the curve of his spine before cupping his buttocks. Jungkook's breath caught, his body tensing with desire. He pulled away, his eyes locked on Tae's as he yanked off his shirt, his movements swift and urgent. The gesture was a testament to his growing desperation, his need to shed the barriers between them and claim Tae's skin as his own.
Tae's hands fell to Jungkook's high-carat PS, his fingers wrap/ping around the sharp bones as he watched, his chest heaving with ragged breaths. Finally, the shirt was discarded, and Jungkook's lips crashed down on Tae's, his kiss fierce and all-consuming. The gesture was a declaration of his desire, a promise to claim every inch of Taehyung's skin and make it his own.
Jungkook leaned in their chest against Eo, Tae's hands tightened on his hips, pulling him closer. His palms grasped Jungkook's buttocks, his fingers digging into the firm flesh as he deepened the kiss. When Tae's desire peaked, he flipped their positions, pinning Jungkook down. His lips ravaged Jungkook's bare torso, his tongue swirling around his nipple. Continue to read the smut in Buy Me a Coffee account. Link in the description. Saturday morning dawned, and the two lovers woke up entwined in each other's arms. Taehyung's fingers danced through Jungkook's curls, swirling them around his index finger as Jungkook gazed into Taehyung's eyes. As they lay together, wrapped in the warmth of the blanket, their eyes locked in a gentle gaze. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken words, their breaths synchronized in a soothing rhythm. Taehyung's fingers wandered across Jungkook's face, tracing the contours of his moles, while Jungkook's own fingers mapped the constellations on Taehyung's skin. Finally, Taehyung broke the spell, his voice low and husky. "What's on your mind, Rue?" Jungkook's hand closed around Taehyung's, his fingers intertwining with those that had been playing with his hair. "Tae, what's next?" he asked, his eyes searching for answers. Taehyung's sigh was a soft whisper. "We'll navigate this together, Rue. Whatever path you choose, I'll stand by you." Jungkook's face fell, his eyes clouding with worry. "But what about everyone else? My family, friends, the world I live in, they won't understand us." Taehyung's fingers intertwined with Jungkook's, his touch a gentle reassurance. "I know, babe, but we can't let fear dictate our love. We'll face this together, one step at a time." Jungkook's gaze turned inward, his thoughts consumed by the weight of their secret. "Tae, your grandfather, would he be okay? Does he know about us?" A low chuckle rumbled in Taehyung's chest. "Oh, my Rue, it's not a big deal back home. Besides, my grandfather has a partner of his own." Jungkook's eyes widened in shock, his face a picture of cultural bewilderment. "Are you pulling a prank on me?" he asked, his voice incredulous. Taehyung's smile was radiant. "I'm dead serious. His name is Alex, and he's a former model. He's around 40, and Granddad is absolutely smitten." Taehyung showed Jungkook the photos on his phone. Jungkook's eyes grew wide with wonder. He couldn't process the revelation, his mind struggling to reconcile the conservative ideals of his own family with the unconventional love life of Taehyung's grandfather. Taehyung's arms wrapped around Jungkook, pulling him close. "Hey, it's okay, Rue. This isn't a big deal, I promise." I wish that was the case with you too. As they hugged, the tension in Jungkook's body began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of wonder and curiosity. He pulled back, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Are we going to spend all day inside? I want to show you my city, or at least feed you. Taeyoung's smile was languid, his eyes heavy with desire. I'm loving this moment, Rue. No city tour or food can compare to this feeling. Jungkook began to dress, Taeyoung watching him with a lazy grin, his eyes drinking in the sight of Jungkook's lithe body. Jungkook's eyes met Taeyoung's, and he felt a flush rise to his cheeks. I'll work out and come back, Jungkook said, his voice husky. Taeyoung's chuckle was low and sensual. Can't be serious, bloke. You're so/re, aren't you? All night we were, and you want to work out now. Jungkook's chuckle was sheepish. Just half an hour. It boosts me up. Jungkook's blush deepened, but he held his composure. And I'm okay, he said, his voice firm. But Taeyoung's fingers had already found their way to the CL/F of Jungkook's buttocks, his touch sending shivers down Jungkook's spine. Guess Hyung was very easy with you last night, Taeyoung whispered, his voice a sultry purr. Jungkook's eyes flashed with desire, but he bit back his response, his lips curling into a sly smile. Try harder next time, then. Taeyoung's laughter was a low, husky sound. Ow, babe. I'm up for the challenge. Come back fast, and let's see who wins. As Jungkook closed the door behind him, Taeyoung's smile lingered, his eyes shining with a soft, sensual light. He lay back on the mattress, his thoughts consumed by the memory of Jungkook's touch. You're an awesome guy, Rue, he whispered.
Later the day, Jungkook stood at the stove as he cooked up a storm. His mind wandered back to the previous night, Taeyoung's groans echoing in his mind like a siren's call. His AR/S/Al simmered just below the surface, but he was determined to ignore it, at least for now. He couldn't shake off the feeling of being ignored earlier, when he'd returned to the room after his workout, only to find Taeyoung scrolling through his phone, oblivious to Jungkook's presence. The memory still stung, but it was quickly overtaken by the vision of Taeyoung fresh out of the shower, his skin glowing, his hair damp and messy. Jungkook's heart had skipped a beat as he'd fought the urge to rush over and wrap his arms around Taeyoung, pulling him close and never letting go. The desire still simmered within him, making his fingers twitch with the need to touch. As he stirred the pot, the aroma of maguksu wafted through the air, transporting him back to his childhood. He couldn't wait to share it with Taeyoung. Just then, he heard the sound of footsteps, followed by Taeyoung's voice. Rue. What's cookin'? Jungkook's gaze flicked to the side, his eyes meeting Taeyoung's. Maguksu, my favorite, he replied, his tone neutral. Taeyoung's eyes lit up. That sounds like a ripper of a dish. But, bloke, I gotta say, the name's got me a bit spooked. Jungkook's lips twitched, but he refused to give in to Taeyoung's charms. Not yet, anyway. Just stand there and admire the view. Jungkook said, his tone dry. Taeyoung chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. No worries, mate. I'm happy to just stand here and watch you cook. You're a bloody masterpiece, Rue. Jungkook's face remained impassive, but inside, he was melting. He wanted to scream, just hug me already, but he bit back the words, determined to play it cool. As Jungkook cooked, Taeyoung sidled up behind him, his arms wrapping around Jungkook's waist. Rue, do guys wear makeup here? He whispered, his breath dancing across Jungkook's skin. Jungkook glanced up, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Yeah, some do. Taeyoung's chuckle was low and husky, earning him a playful slap on the arm. There's nothing to laugh at, Jungkook said, his eyes sparkling with mirth. Taeyoung's grin was unrepentant. I was laughing at something else, Rue. His eyes locked onto Jungkook's. Come, Taeyoung said. Where? Jungkook asked, his curiosity piqued. To the bedroom, Taeyoung replied, his eyes glinting with mischief. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. Not now, Tainy. Taehyung's smile was reassuring. Not for that, Rue. Just come.
Jungkook's curiosity got the better of him, and he followed Taehyung to the bedroom. Taehyung gestured to the dressing table, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Sit, he said, his voice low and commanding. Jungkook's eyes narrowed, but he sat down, his curiosity piqued. Now what? He asked, his voice laced with amusement. Put this on, he said, producing a lipstick from nowhere. Jungkook's eyebrows shot up. Tainy, I use gloss, not lipstick. Taehyung's eyes gleamed with desire. I want to see you put it on, Rue. Please. Jungkook rolled his eyes, but took the lipstick, his fingers tracing the curve of the tube. As he applied the lipstick, Taehyung's eyes trailed behind the shade, his gaze burning with intensity. Jungkook laughed, watching Taehyung's reaction. Your face, he exclaimed. Frankly, I've seen many ladies apply lipstick, but I've never felt this kink. Now I feel like abusing those lips. Jungkook's laughter was music to Taehyung's ears, and he pulled Taehyung onto his lap, their lips meeting in a fiery kiss. As they broke apart, Taehyung's fingers trailed across Jungkook's lips. I had no idea I'd claim you as mine the moment I laid eyes on you 3 weeks ago, Taehyung whispered, his voice husky with desire. These lips, Rue, they're my downfall. I'm falling deeply, irreparably in love with you. Jungkook's eyes locked onto Taehyung's, his voice barely above a whisper.
Danya.
I dash. Taehyung's lips sealed over Jungkook's, their hands moving desperately over each other's bodies. As they broke apart, Jungkook's voice was laced with amusement. The food, he asked, his eyes sparkling with mirth. Taehyung's grin was unrepentant. After this, baby, after this. Taehyung's voice was a low, husky command. Rue, scream, Hyung, as I penetrate you and feel me swelling inside you, possessing you utterly.
Can you?
His words were punctuated by ragged breaths as he reclaimed Jungkook's L/IPS. Jungkook's eyes rolled back, his voice a barely audible whisper.
Danya. He was
Shattered by the escalating intensity of their passion, the unbridled filth and chaos that accompanied each encounter. And yet, he was helplessly enthralled, his senses ravaged by the sheer brutality of his own desire. He was consumed, utterly and completely, and he knew he'd never escape the depths of this depraved and all-consuming passion. The next morning, Jungkook rushed around the room, getting ready for office in a flurry of activity. Taehyung watched him with a mixture of longing and concern, still lounging on the bed, his eyes fixed on Jungkook's every move. As Jungkook tucked his black shirt into his pants, Taehyung's gaze followed the motion, his eyes burning with a subtle intensity. He subtly rose from the bed, his movements fluid and silent, inching closer to Jungkook with each passing moment. Can't you take a day off, Rue? Taehyung asked, his voice low and husky, his eyes never leaving Jungkook's face. Jungkook's smile was apologetic. I have a design briefing to give to the team today. I can't reschedule it. He glanced at his watch. His expression harried. I'll come home early, promise. Taehyung's gaze drifted to Jungkook's phone, his eyes narrowing. Your Appo is calling. You better pick up. His voice was neutral, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Jungkook reached for his phone. Taehyung's eyes lingered on him, his gaze burning with a possessive intensity. He took another step closer, his movements fluid and deliberate, his eyes never leaving Jungkook's face. As Jungkook slid the call to answer, his voice was tight with tension. Appa, I'll meet you at the office. I'm heading out. Taehyung's eyes blazed with intensity as Jungkook disconnected the call. He pinned Jungkook against the wardrobe, his lips crashing against Jungkook's in a violent, all-consuming kiss. Jungkook's struggles to breathe were futile, his body trembling with desire.
Danya.
What are you doing? Jungkook whispered, his voice barely audible. Taehyung's laughter was husky, his voice low and sensual. I don't know what I'm doing in your country, inside your house, on your bed, but surprisingly, I'm doing what I'm doing. His eyes burned with a fierce intensity, his gaze devouring Jungkook's face. Jungkook's eyes locked onto Taeyoung's, his voice barely above a whisper.
Danya, please.
Taeyoung's lips brushed against Jungkook's neck, his teeth nipping at the flesh. What am I going to do here, babe? Waiting for you to come back. Jungkook's body shuddered, his eyes fluttering closed. Tae, stop. But as he spoke the words, Jungkook's mind recoiled in horror. Did he mean it?
No.
He craved to surrender, to spend a few more moments wrapped in Taeyoung's arms, feeling him so close. No formalities, babe. Just leave. I don't want your father to come searching for you. He reached for Jungkook's tie, his fingers deftly knotting it around Jungkook's neck. I'll miss you beside me, Taeyoung whispered. As he spoke, his fingers tightened. The knot, his eyes never leaving Jungkook's face. Jungkook's heart skipped a beat, his pulse racing with desire. I'll call you, Jungkook whispered, his voice barely audible. Taeyoung's smile was languid. No need to check in, Rue. I'll be here, waiting. Jungkook's face fell, his eyes shadowing with a hint of disappointment. You don't want me to call? He asked, his voice tinged with a subtle vulnerability. Taeyoung's gaze never wavered, his eyes burning with a quiet intensity. I want you to come back to me, Rue. That's all. The conference room was dimly lit, the only sound the steady hum of the projector and Mr. John's monotone voice. Jungkook's eyes were fixed on the presentation screen, but his mind was elsewhere. His fingers flew across the keypad of his phone, typing out a message with lightning speed. Seated beside his father, Jungkook's gaze darted discreetly to his phone, his heart skipping a beat as he read Taeyoung's reply. Rue, I went out just to explore your neighborhood. A flutter in his chest, Jungkook's eyes snapped back to the screen, his face a mask of calm. But his mind was racing, his thoughts consumed by the image of Taeyoung wandering the streets, alone and unmoored. Mr. John's voice cut through Jungkook's reverie, his tone sharp. Jungkook, what do you think about the proposal? Jungkook's response was smooth, his voice unhurried. I think it's a great opportunity, father. The projections look promising, and I believe we can leverage our resources to maximize returns. Mr. John's gaze narrowed, his eyes searching for any sign of distraction. But Jungkook's face was a mask of calm, his eyes locked on the screen with an intensity that belied the turmoil brewing beneath. As the meeting drew to a close, Jungkook excused himself, stepping out into the
hallway.
He quickly dialed Taeyoung's number, his heart racing with anticipation. Come back, love, Taeyoung purred, his voice husky with desire. Tae wants to see you stripped bare, nothing but skin and surrender. Jungkook's eyes darted around the hallway, ensuring he was alone. His voice was barely above a whisper, his words trembling with need. Tae, I'm at the office. You're making it impossible for me to focus. Taeyoung's laughter was low and sensual, a gentle tease that sent Jungkook's pulse racing. Just come before I lose my patience, and I do it. Yeah? Taeyoung whispered, his voice a velvet caress. Jungkook's voice was firm, but his words betrayed a hint of desperation. Dare you do that, Taeyoung Nathaniel? I'm just miles away. Taeyoung's response was husky, his words dripping with seduction. Then come and claim me, Rue. I'm waiting. Jungkook's eyes locked onto the floor, his mind reeling with desire. He knew he had to get out of there, and fast.
His voice was
barely audible, a whispered promise. I'll try, Tae. I'll come to you. Mr. John's voice echoed down the hallway, his tone firm but laced with a hint of concern. Has anyone seen Jungkook? He seems to have stepped out abruptly. His secretary, Miss Kim, looked up from her desk, her expression apologetic. I apologize, sir. He didn't inform me of his whereabouts. He simply excused himself and left. Mr. John's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. With concern, he walked through the corridors, his footsteps measured and deliberate as he pondered the changes in his son's behavior. Jungkook's recent absence from the family home, coupled with his increasingly distracted demeanor, had raised red flags. He pulled out his phone, his fingers dialing a number with precision. "I need to keep a closer eye on him," he muttered to himself, his voice low and measured. "This is getting out of hand." Jungkook opened the door, his eyes locking onto Taeyoung's, who was leaning against the wall, his eyes burning with desire. Jungkook's heart skipped a beat as he took in Taeyoung's disheveled hair and the hint of a smile on his lips. "Hey," Taeyoung said, his voice low and husky, as he pushed off the wall and sauntered towards Jungkook. Jungkook's eyes never left Taeyoung's face, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hey." Taeyoung's eyes sparkled with mischief as he reached Jungkook's side. "I've been waiting." Jungkook's smile was radiant. "I'm sorry. I got held up." "You're worth the wait, Jungkook-jeon." Taeyoung's hands wrapped around Jungkook's waist, pulling him close. Jungkook's eyes locked onto Taeyoung's, their lips inches apart. "I want you," Taeyoung whispered, his breath a gentle caress across Jungkook's skin. Jungkook's voice was barely audible, a whispered confession. "I want you too, Hyung." As he spoke the word, Jungkook's face flushed with a deep crimson, his heart racing with anticipation. He knew the power of that single syllable, the way it could unravel Taeyoung's control and unleash a maelstrom of passion. And it happened as expected. Taeyoung's eyes blazed with desire, his hands closing around Jungkook's wrists like shackles. He dragged Jungkook to the bedroom, the door slamming shut behind them with a loud thud. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a warm, golden light. The two men lay entwined under a blanket, their bodies sated, their minds at peace. Both had dozed off, exhausted from their passion. But as the watch on Jungkook's wrist clicked to 10 p.m., he stirred, his senses on high alert. He felt a presence in the room, a subtle shift in the air that made his skin prickle with unease. As he sat up, reaching for the lights, the moonlight streaming through the curtain illuminated the figure standing in the shadows. Jungkook's heart froze, his mind reeling with horror. The man stood tall, his eyes blazing with anger, disappointment, and disgust. His fingers wrapped around the trigger of the gun, his hand steady, his aim unwavering. Jungkook's voice was barely audible. "A whispered plea. Appa." The word hung in the air, a desperate cry for mercy, for understanding. But Mr. John's face remained impassive, his eyes cold, hard marble.
Her voice was barely above a whisper, her words trembling with concern. "Was that your father?" Jungkook's gaze drifted away, his eyes clouding over with memories. "Yes," he whispered, his voice laced with pain. Her eyes snapped back to his, her voice urgent. "What happened that night? Did he?" Her words trailed off, her eyes searching Jungkook's face for answers.
"That night I had to make a choice, flee or lose everything."